in one of Nigeria's biggest economic news for the week. House of Representatives has approved, the Taiwo Oyedele's committee's tax reform bills. Lower house of legislature, however, retained the value-added tax at 7.5%, and they took out the newly proposed inheritance tax on real estate assets. There's also some good news for small businesses, as the tax exemption threshold was raised to 100 million naira from the proposed 50 million. Let's get more context into the tax reforms and the wider economy as we bring on the show Professor Ken Ife, who of course is a development economist and public sector analyst from our Abuja studios. Mr. Ife, good evening to you. It's great to see you. I wanted to get your thoughts first off on the tax reform bills that have been passed, and then we can dig a little deeper, but just your wider view of what we've seen this week.
You see, apart from the Petroleum Industry Act, this is the second most consequential bill to be presented for assent to the president since independence. And the effect of this bill is, the ramifications are profound. And I'm glad that we are going to be able to look at some of those. But it's the most consequential bill that we have seen that has steadied all the nerves and has actually gone to the root of releasing the economy. Set the private sector free. That is what this bill is trying to do.
Now, there's a whole lot to discuss here. The value-added tax, the decision to not raise it to 15%. I do want to get your thoughts on that particular decision.
No, you know that generally, our tax to GDP ratio is around 10%. We moved from 7 to 10%. But on the average, on the African continent, it should be around 18%. So the tendency is to always continue to increase it. But then there are other schools of thought that think that it is an optimum tax at 7.5% is optimum. There's no point heading out. We should focus on widening the tax base, and we should focus on allowing more disposable income to the corporate sector, to the MSME sector, and to the household, so that the household can push up consumption, and then the MSMEs can push up production, so that both of them can grow the GDP. And when you grow an economy, then you can see what to tax. People are not sure why you want to increase this tax when everybody's on the ground, companies are closing down, and the economy is shrinking. So that is the argument. And then you have to explain to me the wisdom behind Ghana wanting to even take it out completely. So there is a wisdom there. So I really appreciate that they frontally attack that policy. Keep it there and do other things that are necessary to improve the economy.
Okay, but, Professor, we want to help aid those on the lower end of the income scale in Nigeria. We talk about how we are lagging in infrastructure development. So we know that the nation needs more money. If you're not adjusting your tax formulas in terms of VAT, how else do you want to be able to get the revenue needed to fund your development goals and also get more welfare transfer payments and so on and so forth?
Okay, look at, first of all, let's take it one by one. The consumers, is a consumption tax, nonetheless.
Yeah.
But the household are paying more than what they earn. In fact, when you removed all those taxes on education and health and all of that, what you're actually saying to the people who are barely going to survive with 70,000 naira minimum wage, for those who are in employment, very small number, with extreme poverty of over 133 million people, almost 60% of our population. So there's no mileage in squeezing life out of them. So when you remove all those taxes around their consumption, what you are actually doing is that you are increasing their disposable income. And with their disposable income, they can buy more products. So the aggregate consumption in the economy goes up. GDP goes up. There are 5 major things that push GDP. Household consumption is almost 74 to 80%. So that goes up, GDP goes up. Now you turn to the MSMEs, the micro. There are 42 million MSMEs in Nigeria out of 90 million in the whole of Africa. So Nigeria provides 48% of the entrepreneurship in Africa, compared to 18% of the population of Africa, which Nigeria is, and compared to even less than 15% now. Our GDP is even less than 15% of that of Africa. So it tells you that entrepreneurship is a latent comparative advantage for Nigeria. So why don't you give them money? Why don't you let them use what they have to grow the economy, since the central bank has taken away the domestic finance intervention and the banks are lending at 35% or more? You know, you can't squeeze life out of this particular asset of us. So hold your money and then increase the threshold from 25 million to 100 million. What you are actually doing here is that they are now having more control over their resources. That will create more employment, that will stop retrenchment, that will grow the economy, and that would, you know, in the end of the day, would even expand the base of government. So when these economies grow, government revenue grows, you know, because they are helping you keep unemployment very, very low. And then utilize your resources, both natural resources, mineral resources, and what have you. So that is the second part. Then obviously, there's also an argument on how they are distributing the tax, that VAT. They have rejigged it, take away 5% from federal government that was taking 15% collection fee and pass it on to state governments, raising their own to 35, from 30 to 35, and then keeping local government at the same level of 35%. And even that amount that is available to the states are further broken down far more equitably by making sure that they recognize the derivation. That is, whoever brings this revenue out should actually have a good share of it, rather than states are generating revenue and then you are sharing it based on where the draft was reported or where the head office. So that has been rebalanced. So you have to see, you now see population as the principle is reduced from 30 to 20. The equality is still kept at 50%. That is divided among all the states equally. But at least the derivation gets a look in from 20 to 30%. This is becoming, and people accept it, they're happy. And you cannot beat over 80 major stakeholders coming in and spending 3 days on public hearing, dragging this and then agreeing on this. So, let's go. Let's go. That is going to have a major impact on our GDP. The third thing that will have impact is the balance of payment, which is now over $6 billion. And then you have the other one is, of course, investment. Whilst you can say that the foreign direct investment is nearly zero, very small, but we also have domestic investment playing much, much bigger. Have you heard anybody say that Dangote $20 billion is in foreign direct investment? So we have the quantum of investment from domestic investors that are rarely being recognized. But look at it, all of that put together, I see that the government should be going for 6% GDP growth rate rather than 4.8%. So they should be revising that upwards, because you have now got a fiscal law reform that actually gives impetus for more aggressive growth and economic development.
Fantastic. And Professor, I don't want to belabor this point on VAT, but I do want you to take a listen to what Taiwo Oyedele said at our recent Arise News KPMG Budget Day, because he was really trying to emphasize that those at the lower end would not be burdened by this proposed increase in VAT. So just want you to take a listen and get your reaction to what he said that day.
Yeah, so this has been one of the most difficult to explain. It's painful, honestly, that I think there are people who understand it and they refuse to demonstrate that they understand it. For VAT, and I hope nobody will misinterpret what I'm saying now to mean that we are rejecting what the governors asked us to do. We are not rejecting it. I'm just explaining in response to your question. So we said, what is it that people are consuming? particularly the low-income earners and the poorest people that are in multidimensional poverty. And they spend nearly 100% of their household income on food, on health, on education, on rent, and on transportation. And the plan was remove VAT from all of this. In fact, for many of that, will be zero rated. More than 60% of the consumption will be zero VAT. What zero VAT means is there's no VAT on the product, and the person producing it, if they had to pay VAT on anything, they will get the money back from the government. That's significant reduction in prices of those items. And then the rest of us, there are things, there's a pattern of consumption. If you use your phone, for example, a very poor person in Nigeria will barely spend 200 naira in a month. Most of the time they are flashing you. You answer them when you get so angry, right? Yes. You'll be angry with them, but at least you listen to them and they'll speak. Yeah. So if they have to pay higher VAT, that's another 20 naira a month. It's painful, but then they're reducing VAT on many things. The rest of us who spend 50,000, 100,000 on the phone are the one who will bear the brunt of that higher VAT. So it's meant to be progressive. In fact, businesses under the reform will get full credit for any VAT they pay on services, on assets, and on inventory. There's nothing to pass to anyone. Because in fact today, many businesses have to bear their VAT, so which they build into their costs and they charge it to their customers. Under the reform, they will get the VAT back. There's nothing to pass. In fact, manufacturers have over 1.5 trillion of unsold inventory. What we expect rationally will happen is they get a reduction in their cost, they'll pass it on to their customers so they can sell their inventory. But many people have refused to understand it. They said it will stoke inflation, Nigeria will do this and do that. The governor said, I agree with them.
So, Professor, I thought it was very important that we played that clip. So it's, we hear from the horse's mouth what the intention was. So yes, go ahead. Yes.
Yes, I'm glad. I'm glad you played it because it resonates with where I started. I started by saying Nigerian citizens and households have been pushed against the wall. You don't have anything. They have nothing. Neither the minimum wage can save them, nor everything, all the odds are stacked against them. So it was important that they went down to where the person who wears the shoe knows where it hurts. Go down there, remove all this VAT thing around education, around health, around the food they eat, all those things, so that they can have more control over the little income that they have. And don't forget that they use that to pay for the education of their children. They use that to pay for their own health, and then they use that for their farming activity to feed themselves. So we are not gaining anything. And not to talk of where that money actually goes. It still goes to the states, by and large, state and local government. Then, of course, he also makes the point that that is VAT administration. When you are registered for VAT, it is a big burden on companies. Companies that are earning only 20 million or 30 million, reporting for VAT every month, penalties here, penalties there, is so difficult. So it's good that they actually raise that threshold to 100 million, from 25 million to 100 million. So they have very little to worry about. Focus on your business. All of those input costs that would have risen, then you can pass down the benefit to the consumers. And then now use the extra resources to employ people, keep the jobs, reinvest in your company. The banks can't give you any money. They don't even have it. Where will you get money? The whole atmosphere is sucking out oxygen from the excess money supply in the system. So we've got to let our companies breathe, and there are 42 million of them. So this is a good business, getting this new reform. If you can sit this within the next 2-3 months, you will see a rapid growth in our GDP. So I strongly support this bill.
Fantastic. All right, inheritance tax. I want to get your quick thoughts on that. They didn't adopt that. What are your thoughts on them not pushing that forward?
I don't know why you're talking about the inheritance tax. We haven't even developed properties. We haven't even got the system. People are supposed to be building. We have deficit of how many? 20 million houses. Yeah. So what are you inheriting and what are you taxing? You can't tax poverty. They are taxing poverty.
Well, okay, Professor.
We're not in UK.
But there are wealthy people in Nigeria that pass on their wealth to their children, and it is not taxed. So, I mean, is there not an avenue for revenue there? And again, I don't want to keep going. Well, the VAT thing. The reason why I brought up that VAT thing is that what Mr. Oyede was saying was that those who are able to bear the burden, who consume more, would be the ones that would be paying that higher VAT. So I think the point here is to look at those that are wealthier on the higher levels of the income scale to be able to shoulder that burden and not the poor. So that's the reason why I'm bringing that up.
No, I don't think, I think it's misplaced priority, to be honest. You have to get a property tax regime in to begin to even talk about inheritance tax. In the UK, we pay tax on every house we have. You collect it, and when you look at all those millions and millions of homes that are paid, and if the house is empty, you have issues with the local authority. So you have to put people in there, or you keep paying tax on those. So, go for property tax. Get the money from properties that are there. Look at properties that are empty. You're waiting for somebody to die before you can get something from it. Get it when they are alive. Get it from the houses that they're built that are not being rented, and the rents are hiking every day. Let's get that. You will have more revenue than wishing that people will die and you come and collect their inheritance tax. Well,
okay, duly noted. So as far as going, other fiscal matters, the subsidy is gone. You've got the pronouncements, of course, from May the 23rd. What have been as far as your viewing things, the cost benefit to the economy so far and the transition taking place in the downstream petroleum refining sector? I mean, we've seen Dangote, for instance, I think he's cut prices now like the third time in a row. So how are you seeing things in that pool?
I mean, that is music to 230 million Nigerians. That is the prayer. This is answered prayer. We've lived under the yoke of NNPC before that was controlling everything, and nobody saw that as monopoly. And they decided to shut down all their refineries. And now you have a post-PIA where they were also monopolizing the export of crude and then had monopoly over the import of PMS. You saw how more than 10 products that are coming out of crude, only one is coming back to Nigeria, PMS. But you have diesel, you have lubricants, you have kerosene, you have jet fuel, you have, name it. Not to talk of chemicals, organic chemicals. But none of them comes. It all comes like PMS. And then it turns around and says to government, you're owing me. Go and borrow over $4 billion as subsidy. Now the new president came in and kissed away that subsidy. And that now reflects on balance of payment, positive balance of payment of over $6 billion. And then I saw a Chatham House thinking that balance of payment came from devaluation. It came from this thing that was removed. And then you also saw the impact that we are not having competition. And why everybody free-jetting? Is it the way you fight competition? Nobody talked about competition when NNPC blew all our industries, and now they're talking about competition. When 2 refineries are supposed to be working from NNPC, and then modular refineries, 3 of them, and then you have Dangote doesn't need Nigerian fuel. It doesn't need to supply Nigeria fuel. He has enough people in Africa lining up to buy his fuel. He's sending several cargoes to Saudi Arabia, Saudi Aramco, and to Shell BP. So why don't we just respect the contribution that he's making and they enjoy the competition? And then you have the oil marketers who are importing 200 million litre of fuel from which foreign exchange, wherever they get that forex from, in the end of the day, it will deplete our reserves. Because the central bank will still have to go to the reserve to support the price, the value of the naira. So it is still going there. So you have one person working, monkey they walk, baboon they chop. Somebody has put $20 billion in the economy, promoting export, helping others, they're earning dollars for us, and then somebody is taking our dollar and importing substandard products that are injurious to the health, that has exceeded the limit. ECOWAS limit is 50 ppm on sulfur. And there are about 12 items. If you carry out the test, international test, you have to have a density, specific gravity, octane number, a sulfur content, name it, pour points, flush, none of them is being met to international standard. And by PIA, all of them should be there to see that it is transparent. It is not being transparent. All we are hearing is noises, monopoly. If you want to fight monopoly, all the marketers should come and get modular license and come and do their own modular refinery. Then we know that we are going the way of Texas. Texas has more than 80 refineries and petrochemical companies. Come on, let them invest. We had the same in cement. From Nigeria only producing 20% of cement to now being a net exporter of cement. And not only that, open cement factories in other countries are now exporting clinkers to them. Come on, we should appreciate our own.
Certainly.
It's not fair.
Certainly. Professor, if I let you go, when you were talking about inheritance tax, you said, quote, we pay tax on empty homes in the UK. Did you mean do you have homes in the UK, or you're making an example? I just want to clear that up before you go.
No, come on, my friend. I have homes. I'm a British citizen. I have homes in UK. I can't tell you lies.
Okay.
I'm not a civil servant.
Professor Ken, it is always a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for your time, sir. And we wish you a great weekend. Thank you so much for that.